Tonight on Bridge City News, federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer met with the media today and said the illegal blockades of our country's railways have to end now. Transport Minister Marc Garneau is meeting with other transport ministers and Indigenous leaders to find a resolution to the blockades. And with today being Valentine's Day, we interview a couple who's been married over 20 years and asked, what's the secret to a successful marriage?
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer says he wants the Liberals to tell the RCMP to enforce court injunctions to end the blockades which have shut down freight and passenger rail service across Canada. Scheer says nobody wants to see violence, but adds the protests are illegal and must be shut down now.
Quite frankly, this is getting ridiculous. Radical activists, many of whom have no connection to the Wet'suwet'en people, are holding our country's economy hostage. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has been out of the country on a vanity project to win a vote at the UN, neglecting his duties here at home. The Coastal GasLink project, which will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions around the world, has the support of elected band councils across the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. The First Nations community supports this project and the jobs it will create. Democracy and the rule of law are fundamental pillars of our country, and it's time that they are enforced.
Following his extended tour in Africa, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is now in Germany. Once again, he expressed his concern about the various rail blockades here in Canada and how protesters need to respect the rule of law.
Obviously, this is a situation we're following very closely. I have had a long and constructive conversation with Premier Horgan on the flight. I know Mr. Garneau is going to give you an update soon back home.
Transport Minister Marc Garneau, who's meeting with other transport ministers and Indigenous leaders in Toronto, is urging for a peaceful resolution to the protests that have shut down our country's rail system. He says people's livelihoods are being affected.
I want to be clear that freedom of expression and peaceful protest are among the most fundamental and cherished of all rights in a democracy such as Canada and must be respected and protected. However, I have to say that I am deeply concerned about protests that deliberately prevent the operation of railways through illegal activity. There is a risk of seeing this solely as being about a negative impact on the profitability of large companies. But it is about people's jobs and livelihoods, and about the transport of key supplies like food, propane, heating oil, and chemicals for water treatment, agricultural products for export, and so many other products.
Blockades set up by anti-pipeline protesters have forced Via Rail to cancel passenger service across the country. Travelers have been left in the lurch and are getting a little frustrated.
When I was first initially planning out this trip, I thought that this might be impacted, but I didn't think the entire nation's rail would be shut down. But I was kind of thinking wow, they were actually able to shut down, get the attention of the entire national rail system. And I mean, it is an inconvenience and there is some frustration on my part, but I do respect their right to protest.
When you travel for work all the time, right? And it is always inconvenient at the best of times, but then this is just I was gobsmacked when I first heard, because I wasn't sure, okay, where do I start? Do I stay over? And then they said, even if you stay over the next day, there's no guarantee, this could go on till next week, so.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, says the blockades are beginning to have a big impact on the Canadian economy.
The fact of the matter is, it's starting to have a major impact on Canada's economy. When trains aren't running, many goods don't get delivered. So it's having a big impact on our economy. And Justin Trudeau is under a lot of pressure right now from premiers, from the opposition, to find a solution ASAP.
Catch the full interview with parliamentary reporter Ray Fillion discussing the heat here at home that PM Justin Trudeau is facing. That's coming up after Business News. Prime Minister Trudeau recently saw firsthand what Canadian aid money did to help a farming region in Senegal. Trudeau visited a farm where a Canadian agricultural aid project helped bring water pumps and solar panels into the middle of the desert.
A project that Canada invested in many years ago not only had an impact on the people who got to go through the project, but There were other people who took on the project who realized that it was a way with solar panels and electric pumps of being much more productive on their land, and it has led to success and opportunities, including people buying cars, people being able to send their kids to better schools and redo their homes. It is the kind of partnership where initial working together leads to long-term benefits for people in this part of the world, and that's why we're so happy to announce today further investments in projects like this that are going to make a huge difference here in Senegal and around the world.
Foreign Affairs Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne says he raised the ongoing detention of Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig in a meeting with China's foreign minister in Germany. Champagne also discussed the coronavirus and said Canadian health workers are assisting in Japan after 12 Canadians contracted the virus while on a cruise ship.
Well, every time I have the opportunity to talk to my Chinese counterpart, State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Wei, the first priority is obviously the release of the 2 Canadians and also seeking clemency for all Canadians which are on death row currently. We will obviously talk about the coronavirus and get an update of the situation and thank them for allowing us to have a process which has allowed us to repatriate 411 Canadians. And we will look at the state of our bilateral relationship.
Calgary police say they are investigating a shooting that sent 2 men to hospital earlier today. They say the victims arrived at the Peter Lougheed Centre around 3:30 this morning with gunshot wounds. Both were transferred to the Foothills Medical Centre for further treatment. Today is a special day to celebrate those we love. It's Valentine's Day. Named for St. Valentine, it's a day we express love for that special someone by sending cards, exchanging chocolate, roses, or even sharing romantic dinners by candlelight. Here are some interesting facts about Valentine's Day. According to Stats Canada, in 2016, there were just over 11 million dozen-cut roses and rosebuds imported to Canada, mostly from Colombia and Ecuador. Canadians spend an average of $3.6 billion on jewelry and almost $2.9 billion on fragrances. The average Canadian spends around $225 per year on chocolates or candies. And if you're looking at finding your soulmate, you may want to consider these destinations: Heart Lake, Alberta; Love, Saskatchewan; Honey Harbour, Ontario; St. Valentin, Quebec; Cupid's, Newfoundland and Labrador; and my personal favorite, Chocolate Cove, New Brunswick. Now, when you've been married 10, 20, or even 30 years, many couples say it's important to keep the lines of communication open and to have date nights. Pastors Kelly and Joylyn Stickle, who've been married for around 23 years, say understanding each other's love language is an important part of a successful marriage.
It's about setting aside time for one another. It's also about understanding each other's love language. And I love that book. We always come back to it. It's such a great, we can be communicating love and communicating passion, but if the other one's not receiving it in the way that we think we're communicating it, then we're missing. So it's really about investing in the other person, what makes them happy, what communicates love to them, and making sure that you're expressing that in multiple ways.
Watch the full interview with the Stickles discussing the keys to a successful marriage that's coming up in the second half of our show. What does Valentine's Day mean to you, and what plans do you have? We put that question out to some of the younger people today at the University of Lethbridge.
My most recent actually was to the Calgary Tower. So we went for a wicked dinner and it was super cool getting to see the city and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I still really like Valentine's Day. It's always been one of my favorites. So I just go out with my friends now and have a good time.
I still celebrate Valentine's Day. It's more small scale. I like spending time with my friends and my roommates more than significant others because I think it just gets really expensive. I don't really support the whole big corporation behind Valentine's Day. I just like small sentimental things or time spent together, but I do feel like it's a big obligation.
The Heart of the City announced details today for its 5th annual Celebrate Downtown Gala. It recognizes businesses, people, and organizations who invest their time and capital into downtown Lethbridge. This year's theme is a tribute to Old Hollywood.
There's going to be some red sash velvet ropes, there's going to be a little red carpet, and we're going to obviously spoil our nominees. There are 8 categories this year, 7 in which you can nominate in. There's the Unsung Hero category, Downtown Transformation, Downtown Innovator, the From the Heart Award, Volunteer of the Year, and Event of the Year. You can find out all about those categories on the link, which is www.getinvolvedlethbridge.ca/ourdowntown.
If you enjoy cycling, today is your day. This is the 8th annual Ride Your Bike to Work Day. BCN's Loris Alexander spent time with one father-daughter duo who ride whether it's rain, snow, sleet, or shine.
If Goldilocks were a bike commuter, she might never make it to work or school in Lethbridge. Some days would be too hot, other days too cold. Don't be like her. Be like Bob and Abigail Higgins.
It's a great workout and physical activity. I don't have to take an hour out of my day and go to the gym. I can get that exercise, to and from school, and I think it's a great lesson and lifestyle lesson for my daughter to grow up with.
Try it. It's always good to try something new.
If you ever want to get serious about riding your bike for transportation beyond Winter Ride Your Bike to Work Day, you're going to need the right clothes and an attitude that lets you find happiness in imperfect weather.
Winter riding, differs largely in comfort. I mean, it takes good warm clothing. The technical clothing options that we have today, and a lot of local retailers specialize in them in the wintertime, make outdoor extreme temperatures far more comfortable than most imagine.
And about that attitude adjustment, that's not just for cyclists.
There's lots of great people out there that appreciate and give room and respect and add safety to cyclists. And there's, unfortunately, in our city and in our part of the world, there's lots that aren't.
Do you want to hurt people? Do you want to be a really mean person? If you be a mean person, you'll have a worse life later.
Still a skeptic about cycling? Well, this little commuter tells us that biking in the winter is not only possible, it might even make your frigid morning commute a little brighter.
Get out there, ride your bikes. You'll be happier once you do.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
It was on this day that the St. Valentine's Day massacre occurred. Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini calls on Muslims to kill author Salman Rushdie, and Dolly the cloned sheep is put down because of premature aging. This is Today in History for February the 14th.
February 14th, 1929. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre takes place in Chicago. That's where 7 rivals of gangster Al Capone are gunned down in a garage during Prohibition. 1989. Iran's leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, calls on Muslims to kill author Salman Rushdie. Khomeini declares Rushdie's novel, The Satanic Verses, as blasphemous toward Islam. 2002.
The first and greatest crime was the aggression itself.
Acting as his own lawyer, former Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic launches his defense against war crimes charges. Milosevic's case before an international tribunal in the Netherlands faces many delays because of his poor health. More than 4 years later, Milosevic dies in custody while still on trial. And 2003, Dolly the sheep, the first mammal cloned from an adult cell, is put to death at 6 years old. The sheep meets her end after premature aging and disease mar her short existence. Today in History, February 14th. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press.
The Academy Award-winning movie for Best Picture, Parasite, is now playing at the Movie Mill. With more, here's Len Binning with the BCN Movie Mill Minute.
Robert Downey Jr. stars in Doolittle. The eccentric famed veterinarian is forced to travel to an exotic island to find a cure for the young queen, who is taken gravely ill.
We have no choice but to embark on this perilous journey.
Everyone pack your bags! You can talk to animals.
Somehow, we just belong together.
Yes, I think to myself, oh, what a wonderful world.
Parasite, a very unique, very original film, and winner of this year's Best Picture, Best International Picture, Best Screenplay, and Best Director.
내 착하다니까. 진짜 니가 착한 거지.
지금 진짜로 이상한 게 본 것 같아.
Great movies playing at the Mill once again. We had another mild day in the Windy City and is shaping up to be a nice family day-long weekend. Full weather details along with the BCN Ski Report are coming up. It should be a nice weekend for hitting the slopes. Full details are coming up with the BCN Ski Report. But first, Jeanette Roche is here now with a complete look at the weather forecast.
Not a bad weekend ahead of us for our family day long weekend, provided you don't mind the wind. We are going to be seeing 70 gusts of winds this evening for Valentine's evening. The low overnight -3, but it could feel like -11 with that wind chill. Same thing into tomorrow, Saturday. The winds could be gusting up to 70, clearing by the afternoon, high of 5 degrees tomorrow. But with that wind, again, could feel like -10. So looking ahead to the rest of the weekend, 60% chance of flurries are expected on Sunday with a high of 1. For Family Day Monday, high is 0. They're showing lots of sunshine here, but last I checked, they were saying 60% chance of flurries. Same thing for Tuesday with a 60% chance of snowfall that day. -5 is the high for Tuesday. And then we're going to climb later on in the week up to 9 degrees for Wednesday, and we could even see some plus temperatures later on next week into Thursday. So looking at the ALMANAC highs and lows for this time of year, 2 degrees being the average high, -11 the average low. The high temperature on this day was back in 1971. It was 13 degrees. The chilliest day on record was back in 1978. It was -32. The sun rose this morning at 7:44 a.m. and it set at 5:47 p.m., giving us just a little bit more than 10 hours of daylight, which is wonderful. By the way, the hot spot in Alberta today was Fort Macleod. They came in at 4 degrees this afternoon. So let's look at the highs for tomorrow across the country. Victoria's high at 9 degrees, Vancouver 6 degrees. We should be seeing some showers tomorrow on the west coast. Snow expected in Edmonton with a high of -8, and 4 degrees is expected to be the high in Calgary tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud. Lots of sunshine expected tomorrow up in Saskatoon with a high of -16 expected, -11 expected for Regina. Chance of snow there. Chance of flurries also expected in Winnipeg with highs of -12. Those are the highs, by the way. Wind chill's going to feel like a different story, though. Toronto, their high -1. They're going to see some mix of sun and cloud. Now, there is an extreme cold warning in effect for Ottawa into tomorrow. It's looking like the high is -4, but actually with the wind chill, they're going to be registering at -36 overnight and into tomorrow into the -20s. So be aware of that. Lots of sunshine in Halifax and Fredericton tomorrow, -8 the high. In Fredericton, -5 in Halifax, -8 also recorded for Charlottetown and St. John's, Newfoundland, -7. They're having a blowing snow warning in effect. They could see lots of wind chill there and a risk of frostbite. Okay, Hal, back to you with the ski report.
Today's weather highlights are brought to you by Aqua Steam Services. For award-winning carpet and upholstery cleaning, experience the clean difference with Aqua Steam Services.
Here is the BCN Ski Report. No new snow over the past 24 hours on any of the ski resorts reporting in, but at Marmot Basin they have a 134 centimeter base. Castle Mountain has a base of 232 centimeters. Sunshine Village, a base of 170. Lake Louise has a 162 centimeter base. 91 centimeters reporting in at Mount Norquay. Nikiska is coming in at 124 centimeters for a base. No fresh powder in Whistler, but they still have a solid 242 centimeter base. Panorama checks in with a 124 centimeter base. Whitefish, Montana, a 279 centimeter base. Stay safe and enjoy skiing this Family Day long weekend. Canadian National Railway says it must shut down its entire train network in eastern Canada because of blockades by anti-pipeline demonstrators. The company says the halt may lead to temporary layoffs for eastern Canadian staff. Via Rail, which mostly uses CN track, says that also means shutting all of its passenger service in Canada. CN says that while the blockades have been dismantled in Manitoba and may be ending in BC, a court order in Ontario is yet to be enforced and continues to be ignored. The president of the BC Chamber of Commerce says the protests over the construction of the Coastal GasLink natural gas pipeline are having a devastating impact on the economy. Val Litwin says the cancellation of hundreds of CN trains this week means everything from grain to propane could not be delivered. Calgary-based Enbridge posted adjusted earnings of $1.23 billion in the fourth quarter, which is up from $1.17 billion in the previous year. It also says its full-year earnings also rose on higher asset use and contributions from infrastructure put in place in late 2018 through last year. For the year, the energy company says it had adjusted earnings of $5.34 billion. That is up from $4.57 billion in 2018. Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard is being accused of sexual assault and sex trafficking. A class action lawsuit has been filed by 10 women, several of whom were under the age of 18 at the time of the alleged incidents. The lawsuit filed in New York alleges Nygard lured young women under false pretenses of modeling opportunities to his mansion in the Bahamas to sexually assault them. The lawsuit claims Nygard drugged several of the young women when they did not comply with his demands for sex. Nygard's lawyer says the lawsuit contains nothing but false allegations that are without foundation. Valentine's Day is a good opportunity to strengthen your financial commitment to your partner or to show yourself some love by increasing your financial security. NerdWallet reporter Kimberly Palmer says planning is key.
So whether you're single or in a partnership, Valentine's Day is a really good time to think about taking care of yourself and also your partner. So it's a time to step back and talk with your partner about what your long-term goals are with your money. Because if you can get on the same page, it's easier to plan and to make sure you meet those goals. So it's a really good idea to set aside time when you're not rushed, you're not busy, and you both know you're going to talk about your money goals. And then think about what are you good at with money? Where do you need to improve? What do you want to do with your money, whether it's going on a vacation or maybe saving more, making a down payment on a house one day. Whatever those goals are, you want to make sure you get on the same page with your partner.
Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 27 points on the day to 17,848. The Dow was down 25 points to 29,398. The S&P 500 was up 6 points to 3380. The Nasdaq was up 19 points to 9731. Oil was up 83 cents on the day to $52.25 per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $1.85. Gold was up 8.06 to $15.8406, and silver was up 9 cents to $17.74 an ounce. Wheat is at $224 per metric ton. Barley's at $224. Canola's at $4.72, and corn is at $260 per metric ton. Live cattle were up $1.80 to $120.33. Feeder cattle were up $2.20 to $138.53. Lean hogs were up 23 cents to 64.30. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to 75.46 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Transport Minister Marc Garneau is meeting in Toronto with provincial and territorial transport ministers and Indigenous leaders to try and bring an end to the blockades which are interrupting Canada's railways. Canadian National Railway says it must shut down its entire train network in eastern Canada because of blockades by anti-pipeline demonstrators. The company says the halt may even lead to temporary layoffs for eastern Canadian staff. So what are the keys to a successful marriage? Communication, lots of chocolate. Up next, I chat with a couple of pastors who've been married for about 23 years to get their perspective. That interview's on deck. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Pitcher Butte Trinity Church is hosting a play entitled Amazing Grace, the story of John Newton, on Friday, February 21st at 7 p.m. Enjoy this solo performance featuring Deanna Storfy from Acting Up Drama as she brings to life the true story behind one of the most popular and recognized hymns of the 20th and 21st centuries. Tickets are $10 and can be purchased by calling Sandra at 403-732-4787. Come for a night of down-home fun to the Friends Winter Barn Dance on Saturday, March 7th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Galt Museum and Archives. Wear your best Western hat and boots and dance the night away. Proceeds will go towards educational programs at the Galt. Tickets are $30 for adults, $20 for youth ages 11 to 17, and children 10 and under are free. Purchase yours by visiting galtmuseum.com. Southern Alberta Men's Ministry is hosting Shine Be the Light Men's Conference on March 20th and 21st at University Drive Alliance Church. emceeing the conference is our very own BCN's Hal Roberts, with special guest speaker Pastor Leonard Anderson of Emmanuel Baptist Church in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Tickets are $20 and $10 for college students. Price includes food, fun, and fellowship. Purchase yours by visiting eventbrite.ca. For more information, call 403-327-4422. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Marriage, it is often blissful for the first 6 months, and then real life kicks in after the honeymoon fades, and then the hard work begins. What are some of the keys to a successful marriage? to help keep the romance going. Joining me at the desk today is Kelly Stickle, lead pastor with My Victory Church, and his lovely and talented bride, Joylyn Stickle, also with My Victory. Thanks for joining me on BCN here, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here.
Yep.
Ladies first, how long have you guys been married?
23 years this year.
Wow. Does it feel like 23 or
no?
long? No.
No, I feel like
No.
I'm 18, so that doesn't do
Oh.
math. Yeah.
That's
no,
awesome.
it when you look back at the time when you weren't married, it seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
But no, it's been fun.
Yeah.
For the
Kelly,
most part.
how's the marriage really evolved since when you guys first got married to here we are 23 years later?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's evolved in many ways. I think, you go through all the different phases from feelings to pressing through to getting to know one another to the honest conversations, all of that stuff to working together. But we've been blessed. We both came from very solid homes, and both of our parents were in great marriages, so we didn't carry a lot of expectations or baggage in that. But so we came in with a lot of that stuff, and were able to work through a lot of that stuff.
So Joylyn, when you see that there's signs that your marriage may be in trouble a little bit,
Yeah.
because no marriage is perfect.
No.
How do you recognize some of those signs?
I think when you're with someone for a while, then you kind of know if something's off. You feel if something's off, and I think if you notice something's off, for us at least, we have always been very open. We've tried to be communicating a lot with that. And
Never go to bed angry, right?
Well, we try. There's been a few times when I'm just like, no, we're not doing this tonight. So honestly, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's obviously a very good thing to keep in mind. And and it's wise to not go to bed angry. But also we've found it's sometimes wise not to hash things out when you're tired. So sometimes we just say, okay, we're going to table this till tomorrow. I like you a lot. Just remember that, and we're going to sleep. And then we'll work it when our brains are fresh.
Kelly, how about for you? What were some of the warning signs when your marriage may potentially be in trouble?
I think one sign that is often overlooked is the joy level in the relationship. So if the Bible says, Nehemiah said it in Nehemiah 8:10 that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So if the joy level and the happiness and that joy level seems to decrease in any way, that's an indication that something's not as strong as it should be. So to me, that's one of those signs. If we're not laughing the same together, and the joy in the home is not the same as it once was, the passion wasn't the same, then something is slipping. And so let's jump on it and address it right away.
Now, you guys have kids.
We do. We
How
have
many
6.
Kids? 6 kids.
6 kids, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandbabies.
Oh, grandkids! Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys started really young then.
Yep, we did.
Right?
We love it. We think we have some energy still to run the race with all the grandbabies too.
Now, do you still have date nights? And how important are date nights?
They're vital. Yes, we do date nights every week, and we've made that a important routine. Pastoring is not a 9 to 5 and then shut it off kind of thing. So there's lots of evenings that are required. So we just decided right from the beginning, and we started pastoring virtually right after we got married.
Yeah.
And so we just decided, no, we're going to make each other a priority at least once a week in a date night, and focus on each other.
Traditional dinner and a movie, or do you guys mix it up with axe throwing?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we like to get out and have dinner together, just so we can have talk without kids hanging off our arms. But we do talk about the kids mostly when we're out there. We try and say, okay, we're not talking about ministry, we're not talking about the kids, and then
we sit there and stare
a
at
little
each
bit
other.
bored. No.
But you're not on your phones, right?
No.
No.
We make priority not to be.
How detrimental is that to a marriage?
Oh, totally.
Putting in too much electronics, you're on your phone too much, or
Yep.
maybe in front of your computer, or even, other electronics?
Yeah, and I think it can be a habit that hurts a lot of relationships for sure. When you're trying to, you're wrecking memories that could be had one-on-one FaceTime by recording memories or by looking at other people's memories and such. So,
it's true. I like back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, and somebody would call. There's times where you'd let the phone ring when you're in an important conversation. But today, when you get a text comes in, or we're ready to drop everything right now and be distracted from the conversation, and that's really detrimental to good communication.
Aren't there also temptations as well when you're online? Maybe an old friend wants to reconnect on a social media avenue like Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe an old girlfriend or an old boyfriend, perhaps. And
Yep. And it's easy to hide that too, right? Like it's not like you're getting a letter in the mail from this old friend that your wife or husband could find. It's easy to hide these secret affairs that could happen online.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you rekindle the romance, though? I mean, after 20 years, I mean, date nights are fine, but how else do you rekindle the romance?
Go ahead.
What's the show rated? No, it's about setting aside time for one another. It's also about understanding each other's love language, and I love that book. We always come back to it. It's such a great, we can be communicating love and communicating passion, but if the other one's not receiving it in the way that we think we're communicating it, then we're missing. So it's really about investing in what the other person, what makes them happy, what communicates love to them, and making sure that you're expressing that in multiple ways. So, little things that we've decided right from the beginning in our marriage was, Joylyn is really, big on physical touch and really big on, so when I leave, I don't leave without saying goodbye and a hug and a kiss. When I come home, I go to her and it's a hug and a kiss right away. And it's the communication that way is just saying, no, hey, you're the most important. I'm going to you. You get kids jumping on you, but you go right to her.
Because you never know, too, that maybe that might be the last hug and kiss you'll ever receive from your spouse.
Yeah.
Something could happen, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I should have hugged and kissed my spouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it communicates priorities, right? So I'm excited to see you when I get home.
Yeah.
When I miss you when I go. It's little things like that. It just keeps things. And then text throughout the day or little sweet nothings here and there or whatever it might be is, just romance.
We still flirt with each other.
Yeah, we still flirt with one another. Yeah, we like that.
I've talked to other couples as well that say another thing you can do with your love language is maybe do the dishes. Or maybe the hubby can make dinner, maybe once a week or twice a week. In the summertime, a lot more.
Yeah.
And we've got the barbecue going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if we want to keep the family alive, we do that as little as possible.
That's right. Well, but I mean, those are simple things you can do as well as a husband, right? Or
Yeah,
as a wife.
exactly.
Just little things like that.
Yeah, and things, they don't have to be big romantic gestures and going away for the weekend or whatever. And those are fun. Like you said, the date nights are fun, but no, it's all the little things along the way that show that you care and show that you're priority to each other.
How important is it to have something in common? A lot of people say opposites attract, it's better, the yin with the yang, there's proper balance that way. She's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, but we make it work. But I don't know, the older I get, my wife and I have been married for 30 years, I'm thinking having more things in common, similarities, works better, more effectively for a successful marriage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the longer you are married, the more things you do get in common, I think. The more things like my husband loves football, and he likes to say that I'm a huge fan of football, but I am a huge fan of him, and so I enjoy sitting down and watching it every once in a while with him.
And his reactions?
Yeah, well.
And the tears that flow?
I like when we're winning. But no, I think it's, you kind of love your person, and so you love what they love. And then there are some times when, like, we've always been in ministry, as he said, and so that's a huge passion beyond a job for both of us. And so that's our life, right? Like our ministry and our family. And so those things are huge commonalities that we share. But as far as hobbies and such like that, we
love the motorcycle. Yeah.
We love the motorcycle, and we enjoy doing things that the other likes to do as well.
Now you support him in football. What do you support Joylyn with? Maybe some of her passions.
Yeah, well.
Go to the opera, the ballet.
We watch some movies once in a while.
Chick flicks.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
He doesn't fall asleep though, does he?
No.
Okay.
No, he's very.
And I try hard not to mock any of them. It's good.
If he's quiet, then it's good.
How about when it comes to kids, making time for yourselves and say, kids, we love you guys, we'll die for you guys, but right now this is mom and dad time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hugely important. And my kids, because we homeschool them, they're home with me all the time. And Dad's home quite a bit too, just the way he is. He tries to be home as much as he can throughout, between the meetings and stuff, and we'll pop into his office and all that. So they get to see him. It's not like they're desperate for both of us by the end of the day because they've seen us throughout the day. So yeah, we don't feel bad about saying, okay, you can go. Even screens are great babysitters every once in a while, where you say, go on your screens and we're gonna just sit and talk, and it works sometimes.
Yeah, we try to do a holiday at least once a year where it's just the two of us.
Yes.
And we do holidays with the family, but we have at least a week where the two of us just go away, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
How important is respect when it comes to a relationship?
Oh man, it's utmost.
Yeah, it's vital.
I think even respecting who these people are, who your spouse is, and like you had talked about the love languages, and understanding that, okay, my love language is physical touch, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how he's going to feel love, but he knows that that's how I naturally show love. So just kind of respecting who each other is and understanding that and going with that.
Yeah, I think love is talked about often, but I think respect is not talked about enough. I think it's a vital part of people will focus on love and the feeling of love, but I think respect is the showing of value at another level for each one. And it's always focused on just the men need it, men and women need respect too.
Yeah.
What about forgiveness?
Yes,
like
huge.
Some couples go through an affair, other couples go through whatever else, some traumatic experience in their relationship. And the person says, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. And I think forgiveness needs to be separated from trust too. Like that's a whole other issue for sure. But yeah, forgiveness is for yourself. And I think if you're waiting for the other person to need that forgiveness or to ask for that or to reciprocate it, then you're gonna be waiting for a while probably. So I think forgiveness is for your own health.
Yeah, it definitely it's about self, but forgiveness is like Joylyn said, is different than trust, and we mix those things up, and I think the idea that we forgive and forget, I think that's a misnomer as well. I don't think there's certain things that you can't forget, but the ability to forgive is a choice to not hold against the other anymore, and that's freeing for yourself when you forgive your spouse. But that's also freeing for the relationship. So it's vital. We're all human beings. We're all fallible. We're all going to hurt one another. We're all going to make mistakes. So forgiveness is invaluable to a relationship.
When Julie and I first got married in 1990, I was working in radio, and a lot of broadcast journalists, you pay your dues all over Canada. You travel, you go from station to station. But one good thing that we really realized in the early years was that we had to rely on each other and God. We didn't have any outside interference from other family members. As much as we love our moms and our dads, but sometimes, they can interfere, especially when you first get married. Yep. So would you give that kind of advice to other couples as well, to maybe kind of distance yourself, maybe create a little separation with maybe some moms and dads?
Yes, I do a lot of premarital counseling, and I advise, especially for newlyweds, when they first get married, is keep a healthy a separation between, parents, and because if we run to our parents with everything that she did wrong, then mom and dad are going to take that resentment, and it's going to create tension in the family. But we dump on mom and dad what she did wrong, but then we don't say, well, we made up and she apologized and all of that. Mom and dad are still walking around with this resentment, and it creates tension. And so be careful whose shoulder you cry on, but also the Bible does say leave and cleave, right? So it does say leave the parents. And so there has to be this healthy separation saying, hey, I don't need mom and dad like I did before. I'm leaving that necessity in order to focus on our marriage. And she's the most important thing now to me.
And I guess at the same time, if you ever want marital advice from your parents, let's say they're married 30, 40, 50 years, it's kind of cool that you can go talk to them as well, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because chances are they've been down the same road that you guys are going down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But make sure that your spouse is aware that when you're talking to mom and dad that we're having this conversation. This is what we talked about, and so that there's no expectation of tension as well, feeling like, okay, you're dumping on them about me. That makes it awkward as well. So just be honest with one another what the conversation is.
That brings me to secrets.
Yeah.
How dangerous are secrets between couples? Outside of the fact that you don't know what I got you for Father's Day or for your birthday, right?
There are no secrets. She always knows what I'm getting for
presents.
For
like,
presents.
oh,
I'm like, I can never. She's like, you got me this. Oh.
It's all right. He gets me what I want then.
Yeah.
How dangerous, Joylyn? What do you think? Secrets?
Yeah, I think they're hugely dangerous. And I think the fact that you, in the first place, feel like you need to keep a secret is the root of it rather than the secret itself, right? And so if you don't have that trust relationship with your spouse, that you feel like there's a secret that needs to be had, or you feel like that you can't trust them with something, or you're doing something that you shouldn't be and need to keep that secret, then it's hugely damaging.
It is,
yeah.
It's the separation, I think, between intimacy. Like, intimacy is into me, you, see, and if there's a secret in there that I'm holding, then there's going to be a separation of that intimacy, and there's going to be something that's going to be a space between that's
Yeah.
going to, and you might never, share it or not share it, or you may never know, but there's something that just created a space between that intimacy, and two becoming one, you can't afford that space.
How important is it having Jesus Christ as the foundation to a healthy marriage?
Vital. Yeah, absolutely vital. And I don't know, like there's times when in our life we're like, we don't understand how people can go through things in life, in family, in marriage without having Jesus. And like Kelly said, we've always had that, and so we're able to, like we've had that in our families, right?
Yes.
And so, we just feel like everybody needs that.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I totally agree. I think the best analogy that I saw was the picture of a triangle, and the further, the base of the triangle is the furthest separation between there. If God was at the point of the triangle, the closer that we get to God as it goes up the triangle, the closer we get to one another. Mm-hmm. And if one goes up and one doesn't, gets closer to God and one doesn't, there's still a separation in space. But the closer we get to God, the closer we get to one another. So I think He's the center, and it's vital for a healthy marriage.
That's a pyramid scheme I can get behind.
Yeah, there we go.
Absolutely.
Joylyn Stickle, Kelly Stickle with My Victory Church, thanks again for joining us here in studio.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Hal.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is racking up the air miles. He recently spent quite a bit of time visiting countries in Africa, campaigning for a UN Security Council seat. To talk more about it is our national parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion. Ray, many people argue that Trudeau should not be trying to get a UN Security Council seat, considering the United Nations is not an organization we should even be associated with.
Yeah, that's a point of view we've heard in the past few years, but the fact of the matter is Justin Trudeau declared Canada's candidacy back in 2016, and now he's campaigning for one of two available seats. The issue is for Canada, we have two competitors, Ireland and Norway, and both of those two European countries, Hal, are set to have an edge on Canada because they've been campaigning for longer than Ottawa has. They're also spending more money than Canada is on things like peacekeeping in Africa, development, money for less fortunate countries. But the fact of the matter is the race is on, and Prime Minister Trudeau spent quite a bit of time in the past week campaigning in Africa. You have to know that Africa is key to whichever country is trying to obtain a seat on the UN Security Council, because it's a big block of countries, 54 countries in all. So the Prime Minister traveled to Somalia earlier this week, where a major gathering of African leaders was taking place. He then traveled to Senegal in the western part of the continent, where he obtained the support of that country's president. He said that his country will be voting for Canada, so that's a plus for Canada. But Canada's bid appears very unsure. The Norwegian Prime Minister was in Ethiopia at the same time Justin Trudeau was there earlier this week, and she publicly said, in front of cameras, that she believes her country is way ahead of Canada. So good luck, Mr. Trudeau. We still don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, the vote is still a few months away. It's going to take place in New York City in June, but it would be a major embarrassment for Mr. Trudeau to fail in that campaign, because when he announced, when he became Prime Minister in 2015, he went to the United Nations and said, ladies and gentlemen, Canada is back. Well, if Canada's back and fails to win one of those two available seats, that would be a big embarrassment for Prime Minister Trudeau. You'll recall that it was pretty embarrassing for the Harper government to fail to win a seat 10 years ago. It was actually the first time that Canada had campaigned and failed to win a seat on the UN Security Council. So it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens in June when the vote takes place in New York.
So, Ray, bottom line, what's the advantage of Canada having a UN Security Council seat?
Well, Canada wants to have its voice heard on the international scene, and that's one of the ways you can achieve that. That's certainly an argument that Canada, that the Prime Minister is expressing to Canadians who keep asking the same question. What's the need? Because Canada so far has spent more than $2 million campaigning around the world, and it's not over, because the Prime Minister is actually scheduled to be in Barbados on Monday and Tuesday. A major gathering of Caribbean world leaders is set to take place there, so he's going to spend 2 more days abroad as he continues to campaign for one of those 2 available seats.
Now, speaking of our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau missed the deadline to file his report with the Ethics Commissioner. What does this mean for Monsieur Trudeau?
Well, yet more problems for the Prime Minister with the Ethics Commissioner. I know he was, and you know that he was raked over the coals on a couple of occasions by Canada's Ethics Commissioner in the past few years for things he did. You have to know that all sitting MPs, 60 days after their election or re-election, they have to file a report with the Ethics Commissioner detailing all of their private interests and that of their families. This is to avoid situations where an MP, including the Prime Minister, because he's also an MP, could be found to be in a conflict of interest situation. Now, the deadline for Prime Minister Trudeau was January 13th, but we found out this week that he has yet to file his papers. The Prime Minister's office says the failure to file was an oversight and that it's being corrected. So it just looks bad. You might be wondering what the consequence might be.
Right.
Nothing. There are no consequences, no penalties. So
No slap on the wrist or anything.
Nothing. No consequences, no fines, absolutely nothing. So it's leading some people to wonder, why have rules in the first place when you may not respect them and there are no consequences? So, yeah.
Right, let's talk about the federal Conservative leadership race. I mean, the Tories are going to pick their new leader in June. And it appears as though Peter MacKay really doesn't have a lot of competition. Originally, we thought maybe former Foreign Affairs Minister in the Harper government, John Baird, may have been his biggest competition, but Baird said, not interested.
Yeah, that's what he announced on Twitter on Thursday afternoon. Former Minister Baird becoming the latest potential high-profile candidate to take a pass on this race. We talked a few weeks ago about former Quebec Premier Jean Charest, MP Pierre Poilievre, who has a seat here in the Ottawa area. Former interim Conservative leader Rona Ambrose was also facing a lot of pressure to enter this race. They've all decided to take a pass. Former Minister Baird announcing on Thursday on Twitter that he's happy where he is. He works for a major law firm in Toronto. He's been out of politics for 5 years now, enjoying it. But there was a lot of pressure on him to reconsider, given all the other big names who've decided to take a pass. Quite frankly, it's astonishing. You know, you could understand big names decided against running 3 years ago when Justin Trudeau was still very popular. The honeymoon with the new Prime Minister was still a thing. But now, Justin Trudeau is not the same Justin Trudeau from 3 years ago. The honeymoon has been over for a while. And whoever becomes the next leader of the official opposition, the Conservative Party of Canada, will stand probably a very good chance of becoming the next Prime Minister of this country. So it's kind of surprising to see so many big names deciding not to enter the race at this point.
So it's really Peter MacKay's to lose, isn't it? I mean, I can't see him getting a lot of competition from Aaron O'Toole or Marilyn Gladu.
No, he's not getting a lot of competition right now. As a matter of fact, here in the nation's capital, what a lot of people are saying is that Peter MacKay is basically running against Peter MacKay right now. He's made a few mistakes since he launched his campaign a few weeks ago. A tweet that his campaign decided to put out there that he didn't like, criticizing Justin Trudeau for expensing things like yoga lessons, an interview with CTV that his staff decided to cut right in the middle, interrupting him. So, yeah, he's made a few mistakes, not to mention his campaign launch where a lot of people criticized his French. Former Minister MacKay saying, Je serai candidate, basically announcing that he's a woman entering the race as a woman. So some mistakes were made earlier on that he's going to have to correct. But, he's the front runner by all accounts right now.
Many people in the Alberta energy sector, Ray, are eagerly awaiting Ottawa's crucial decision on the Tech Frontier Mine project. Alberta is trying to dig itself out of one big recession, and many argue we really need this here in this province.
Yeah, but the problem is a lot of MPs in Justin Trudeau's party, in the Liberal Party, are campaigning against it. They're putting a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister not to give the green light to that big project in Alberta because of its environmental effects. And many of these MPs are saying, look, we just spent an election campaign last fall campaigning on the environment, on the need to have a greener planet. And people on the doorstep would tell us, but you guys bought a pipeline in Western Canada, the Trans Mountain pipeline. Uh, so they're saying if on top of having purchased the pipeline, we give the green light to a project like Tech Frontier, we'll be dead in the water come when the next election comes around. So Justin Trudeau's under a lot of pressure right now. On the one hand, many of his MPs here in Eastern Canada campaigning against it. And on the other hand, of course, Alberta and Premier Jason Kenney putting a lot of pressure on the federal cabinet to approve that project that is so important to the Albertan economy. Mr. Trudeau is between a rock and a hard place right now. Another very tough call for the Prime Minister to make in the coming weeks. And he's got until the end of February to make that decision.
And it's interesting, many federal Liberals wonder why they were shut out of Alberta. I don't know why. How could that be? You know, Ray, most Canadians say Ottawa should not allow Huawei to participate in Canada's 5G network. Does it boil down to safety concerns?
It boils down to safety concerns, basically, essentially because many of Canada's allies, including and especially the United States, have decided to bar Huawei from taking part in their upcoming 5G network. So Mr. Trudeau is also under a lot of pressure with regards to that decision. That's another very tough decision for which he's between a rock and a hard place. The players are different in this case. On the one hand, the Americans are putting a lot of pressure on Canada to bar Huawei from entering or playing any sort of role in Canada's upcoming 5G network. And on the other, China pushing for the opposite. And there was a poll conducted by the Angus Reid Institute in the last couple of weeks that showed 56% of Canadians think Huawei should not be allowed. So over half of Canadians side with the Americans on this issue. 34% of respondents believe the Chinese company should be allowed to play some sort of limited role, kind of like in Great Britain, perhaps. And 10% saying Huawei should be allowed to fully participate. You can see that these people are in the minority. We still don't know exactly when Ottawa's going to make a decision on that front. The former public safety minister, Ralph Goodale, who lost his seat in the last election, said last spring in 2019 that Canada's decision would come before the election. The election obviously has come and gone, and we still don't know when Ottawa is going to make a call. This is another one of those tough decisions that the Trudeau Liberals seem to be punting down the field for as long as they can.
Ray, Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau says the coronavirus outbreak will have a major impact on the economy. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the international economy in Canada won't be an exception, and it's no surprise why. It's no secret why. It's because China is Canada's second largest trading partner, and many major cities have been virtually shut down for the past few weeks. People aren't consuming goods the way they normally are, including Canadian gas. So it will have a major impact likely on Canada's economy, according to the finance minister. He said, Minister Morneau, this week that he expects the coronavirus to be a major topic of discussion when he and his G20 counterparts meet in the next couple of weeks to discuss the worldwide economy.
The Canadian government is also very concerned about the blockades affecting CN railways.
Absolutely, especially after news that we got on Thursday afternoon that Canadian National, the CN, will be shutting down gradually its entire Eastern Canadian network of railways. So not a single train in the coming days will be moving for the foreseeable future east of Toronto. This is major news. Adding to that, Via Rail also announcing on Thursday afternoon that they will be canceling every single train running across Canada as a result of the blockades that we've been seeing across the country for the last few weeks. So obviously, it's a quite complicated issue for the Trudeau government. We're talking about an issue regarding a pipeline in British Columbia. Many band councils, native councils have decided to support that project. The problem is many hereditary leaders are adamantly opposed to that natural gas pipeline in British Columbia. So the federal government, which promised reconciliation with Indigenous communities across the country, is trying to navigate this issue very carefully. But the fact of the matter is, it's starting to have a major impact on Canada's economy. When trains aren't running, many goods don't get delivered. So it's having a big impact on our economy. And Justin Trudeau is under a lot of pressure right now from premiers, from the opposition, to find a solution ASAP. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are calling on the Prime Minister to cancel his international travels, his campaign to try and get a UN Security Council seat, and just stay home to try and broker a deal, find a solution to this issue.
Wonder why, maybe that's why some of his hairs are going a little gray in the beard and the mustache. You know, there's a little bit of stress with our Prime Minister these days.
A little bit of stress. I mean, when you look at the situation, the trains aren't running. He's got to make a major decision where Huawei is concerned. And this tech frontier thing, yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't have more gray hair.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks again, Ray.
You bet, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.